All right, so we're going to start assignment 3 now that we've done our creatures and we've done our fantasy landscapes. And if I go to my instructor demonstrations in assignment 3, my past ones, you'll see that all we have to do here is put our creature into our landscape. Now here's using someone else's digital model, a 3D model. And then we have them here on what's called an overlay layer. Or you could think of it as an overlay mask. And so what we do is we put our creature in, and then we light our creature, and then we give our creature a shadow and maybe some effects like dust it's kicking up that help it match with our fantasy setting. The goal is that our creature fits within the atmosphere and the lighting of the setting we give it. No matter the textures, no matter the colors of our creature. And I'm going to show you a way where we can save it as this overlay mask. So for instance, this creature is blowing steam because it's kind of a cold environment and has a shadow underneath them and fits in this way. This creature is actually stepping into water, the tail's going in and out of the water, and he's kind of pushing it around, so there's a little bit of turbulence and foam at his foot. That way. So on and so on. All right, so let's get started with it. What's the first thing we need? Well, we need access to our fantasy landscape. So you want to go back to your assignment 1 folder. You want to open up your PSD assignment. Now this is just a JPEG of my fantasy landscape. And to bring in a PNG is to put a sticker of my creature into this. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to go into a flat landscape because I want to make use of all the atmospheric layers and the different foreground elements I've already cut out. So that's why I'm going to open up my fantasy landscape here. And then, let me pull this, or turn this guy off for a second. So this is my fantasy landscape. What do I have? I have my top layers are these texture fills. I have a variety of them. Then I have foreground elements and things I thought I might use later. All the way back to the sky in the background on top of my sketch, right? So now I'm going to use that PNG element, this free-floating creature that we turned into PhotoBucket. That's because it merges everything together into one set of pixels. And I drag and drop that onto my landscape. And it will come in, just like you're very well used to now with compositing, it will come in as a smart layer, which allows me to hold down Shift and place it. And especially if there's an area of my landscape that I want to kind of cover up, like this feels like it needs a little bit more of a shadow or a reflection underneath it, but why don't I just cover it up? I don't need to worry about it. And then I can make the creature as big or little as I want, but ideally we want our creature to be to take up at least 25% or so of our finished assignment 3. So there's a few ways I could do that. Here I can make him big enough. Here he's taking up almost a third of it. So that's plenty big enough. Or I could shrink him. He's a smart layer, so I can keep playing with it. And I can make him a lot smaller. Like maybe put him back here on this ice flow. But that's smaller than 25%. So when I turn it in, I might actually want to crop down to a smaller part of the landscape. You just don't want your creature to be super tiny. And you'll see some past student examples where they do multiple examples of their creature in the background. But you want it to be a significant placement. And you can try out a few different ones. It'd be kind of interesting to have the creature back there. And then the other option I brought in before was nice and big up there. Yeah. Maybe I'll go for a little bit smaller this time. Okay, so now here's the beauty of it. We've brought in our PNG element. It should be nicely cut out. You shouldn't have any kind of little debris left around it. And that's why you really want to try to finish off assignment 2 to your satisfaction. Then you can start syncing it through your layers. So if I move it back 1, it goes behind the texture fill. Now behind the next texture fill. And maybe that's a little bit too strong a texture fill, so I might turn that off for right now. And then maybe I'd bring it back with a lower opacity or something later. And if I keep bringing it down, I can use Command left bracket to bring it down through the layers. Eventually I want to get it behind these kind of foreground elements, right? So now that it's behind these foreground elements, I can take that layer and I'm going to take its opacity to about half. Or better yet, just leave it at full opacity and use what we know about our layers now. So because I have a cleanly cut out PNG layer, what I'm going to do is simply select the empty space around my creature. I have contiguous turned off so that it gets all the undercuts, like that little shape in there, anything that would be hiding in between the coral plates. Now that this space around my creature is selected, I'm going to select inverse. So now it's all the space within my creature. Then I'm going to go to this layer that's in the foreground, right in front of my creature, that I want to overlap with it. And I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate just within the area of my creature. And we get this, right? Now, why is that useful? This allows me a layer. I can now put my creature in front of the ice flow, but on top of my creature, put that little cutout of material that now I can erase from with 100% opacity to reveal my creature at the right depth. And if I go too far, you see it's no big deal because it's only where it overlaps my creature where it matters. Where I want to be careful is the elements that I want to show through. So I might even sharpen, it's not that. It's not that soft, but I might sharpen it a little bit. 100% opacity. What's showing through? I could use the lasso to do this as well. But this is partially just practical edge decisions, like what would be obscuring my creature at this depth and what wouldn't be. But it's also aesthetic in deciding, well, how much do I want to show? How much is helpful? And it's definitely helpful to hide where my creature's feet touch the ground. That makes the illusion and the perspective and stuff work a lot better. It just makes my job easier. But then there are other concerns, like what kind of shadows is it going to cast, and does it match the lighting, and all of that good stuff. All right, so we see how that works. First we have that overlap. And it could be just like little rocks by the feet that are overlapping, but a little bit of overlap helps. Now I wonder if I want to keep this fin of ice in there or not. My only concern is it covers up that front foot, which I think tells you a lot about this creature. But for this placement, let me just try it. I might try placing this creature a few different times. Okay, so the first thing is the overlap with the environment. Okay, next is the atmosphere and the lighting. So now I can take my creature layer, and once I have it sized and placed, then I can rasterize it. And I rasterize it by right-clicking on it and selecting rasterize. And this will allow me now to do adjustments to its levels, its color balance, to help work with this environment. So the lighting's a little bit stronger here. So I'm going to brighten it up a bit, put slightly deeper shadows underneath. I go to color balance. It's definitely more cyan in the lighting. Not quite so much yellow. Not quite so much red. Not trying to change the colors of my creature, but change the atmospheric colors that are affecting the colors of my creature. Just playing with it till it feels right. Obviously that doesn't feel right. Let's see if that made a big difference. Sure did. So the creature doesn't look so bright anymore. Now, if you feel you overdo it, you can always make a duplicate and then make those adjustments and then play with opacity on that layer. Okay, next, this is a very cold environment. So I might want to add some individual textures, like icy breath coming from him. So what can I do? Well, I can go to a texture fill layer and kind of cut out a nice column of ice breath. Coming from his mouth like that. Duplicate that from a texture layer. Just take its opacity way up for now. And now to make it blurry, I'm going to filter it, go to blur, go to Gaussian blur. Really blur that out. I can use levels to brighten it a little bit. And if I want to make it more opaque, I can duplicate it and then merge those layers together. Which then allows me to kind of selectively erase away from it. So I use a low opacity eraser, very big, very soft.